So I'm presenting on gap year as a persuasive speech. Alex, next thing. So burnout. What students can suffer with as, they're going through school, working, trying to balance out personal lives and everything is, it's called cynical attitude, which is, let me click the error. Roughly 45.8% of students suffer with cynical attitude, and with this they have increased stress levels, reduced satisfaction, so a loss of hope, motivation, and increased confusion, and they suffer with insomnia. This is something that personally I went through with my years of school, working and trying to decide on, what I want to do with my life and where I want to go from here. Inadequacy, so that is where, they feel that whatever they're doing, it's not going to meet up to standards, they're not going to succeed, or it's just basically not up to par with what they want it to be. Next arrow. And these two, cynical attitude and inadequacy, eventually will lead up to exhaustion and burnout. So ways to avoid burnout would be identifying your personal and professional goals. This is something that a lot of students suffer with. They don't really know what they want to do personally with life and what they see themselves wanting to be. Finding a meaning and purpose in life. And realizing stressors. So realizing stressors is another critical thing to avoiding burnout. If you are able to pinpoint what your stressors are and figure out ways to relieve those, everyone has a coping method. Whether that be going out with friends, taking a night off, or whatnot, it'll help you be able to avoid burnout. Next slide. But how? The most advantage way would be a gap year, which is what I'm presenting. So, what is a gap year exactly? A gap year is a break between secondary and higher education, in which students will work, travel, or pursue something meaningful, etc. I'm currently in a gap year as well, so I'm taking time off away from school, trying to figure out what I want to do. In due time, I've actually changed my major, changed my career goals, and everything else. So, a hindering factor from parents and students is that a gap year is considered dubious, and it causes parents and students to be very hesitant about the whole ordeal. Students and parents remain dubious of the gap year for simple reasons such as students may never return to school. They're wanting their students to pursue higher education and actually go to college, but they're afraid that their student may never do so. Gap years tend to be very expensive, especially if you plan to travel or try to get internships, etc. Some of these programs can cost up to $20,000, $40,000, depends on, if you're in state, out of state, or whatnot. A lot of times these end up being the same cost as tuition. It is very challenging to get into a deferral program is what they're now calling it, or a gap year, essentially. Chapel Hill has one, it's called Global Gap Year. It's very challenging to get into the program. They want you to type up like a strategic plan as to what you're gonna do and what not. And then there's the potential for students to learn nothing during their gap year. This has been increasingly happening over the years. Students are taking a gap year just because they want to take a break from school. They're not actually doing strategic planning or anything to do during the gap year. However, benefits and pros of the gap year, and these benefits and pros are starting to increase each year, especially as new programs start to open up. So the first benefit that we have is find yourself. You'll go through personal growth. You'll be able to develop intellectual skills, communication skills throughout the gap year, skills that you'll carry out with you through, your work, your career, educational. So you'll be able to pick up a meaningful work experience. In my situation, I picked up a job as a manager, realizing that I did not want to do biology. I wanted to do business administration. So there for me, that was my finding myself and my personal growth. Academic preparation, personally and professionally, this also ties back into the work experience and then your personal growth as well. So you'll be able to kind of revive your mind and be able to take things a little bit slower. Actually realize like what you want out of life and what you don't want out of life. You'll be able to travel, which will open up new opportunities as you learn to communicate more effectively and so forth. You'll go through maturation, which is essentially a part of growing up where students become more mature. And you'll be able to ease into the transition of college, and you're not going to feel pressured into the norms and trends of pursuing your bachelor's degree by the time you're 22. You know, everyone seems to think that, oh, you're going to graduate from high school when you're 18, and then you're going to graduate with your bachelor's degree when you're 22. This doesn't necessarily have to, you know, apply to you if you're a different student, if you need more time away. If you've been one throughout high school to take all honors courses and strive to do your very best, get all A's, then you're going to feel pressured, oh, I have to keep this up. But if you take the gap year, hopefully that you won't. Next slide. However, with everything, there are some cons. Some cons of a gap year would be that it is very expensive to travel and do various activities. Like I said, the one at Chapel Hill does not cost you, it's just a deferral. But there are other programs that allow you to take a time away from school, but they are very costly. They can cost up to much as the tuition. An extended break can result in a loss of drive to continue education. So this used to be very prevalent in a lot of students. However, it's starting to not become the norm of students, is that if they took an extended break away from continuing their education, that they would never go back. They would just stick with the job that they picked up during their gap year and keep it up. And then also the con of forgetting learned skills. So forgetting everything that you've learned during your gap year. If you don't set up a strategic plan on how to study what you've learned, yes, you're studying, oh, well, what did I do here to learn this skill and so forth. And then also students are prominent to becoming couch potatoes. So they'll wake up at noon, according to Mr. Salingo at Harvard. He related students that take a gap year as couch potatoes. So they'll wake up at noon and then just watch TV all day and become couch potatoes. So why take a gap year? So this was also by Mr. Salingo at Harvard University. Students who do perform a gap year have been very prominent in increasing their GPAs when they graduate, so they graduate with higher GPAs. It lessens the pressure of going into college and graduating and so forth. Time slows down. So Mr. Salingo actually wrote an article called Timeout or Burnout for the Next Generation. And in this article, he said that a lot of students experience times where they feel that their career and what they're trying to pursue is just living up to a long lost legacy of what everyone expects of them, not what they actually want to do. Also, during the gap year, students have increased interest, so they'll actually learn like what they want to learn, what they're interested in, and so forth. Increased experience. So this can be applied back to if you take a gap year and you decide to work as, I don't know, a CNA or somewhere in Forsyth Baptist, hospice. Just try to get that hands-on experience with things. You'll be able to put that on your resume and actually feel, is this what I want to pursue in or not? And then higher maturity as you graduate. Students who do take a gap year seem to have higher maturity levels, higher professionalism, and so forth. So, and also the very last thing, find your purpose and live a little. So, Dr. Salingo and a few other researchers have studied this about live a little, allowing students to just take it easy. And that is the end of my presentation.